Okay, just want to welcome everybody to this morning's executive. It's the first one in the new session. I'll take the opportunity to remind everybody that when they're speaking, if they could speak directly into the microphone in order that everybody can be heard, including those online. And another opportunity to remind people of a decision that was taken at our June Council, where we had the Joe Cox civility in public life and the decisions around that. And we'd ask everybody to treat each other with respect, including officers. We'll now move into the agenda and we'll have apologies.
Thank you, Convener. And we have apologies from Councillors Bundy and Councillor Deacon, both in circumstances where it's appropriate that there can be substitutes appointed, and in both cases we have substitutes. So substituting for Councillor Bundy is Councillor Flynn, and substituting for Councillor Deacon is Councillor Forrest. And we also have apologies from Agnes Mullen, the Church of Scotland representative.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Bailey Kerr.
Just an update, no news yet on the arrivals.
I thought you were going to give us some exciting news there, so we're still in tenterhooks. Please wish Councillor Bundy and his lovely wife very, very best, and I hope things go well. Okay, do we have any declarations of interest? No, none at this time. Okay, I will now pass over to the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Convener, and good morning, everyone. I wanted to address events in Falkirk at the weekend and set out clearly what Falkirk Council's role is and what it is not when it comes to asylum seekers and the use of hotels. So as members know, the Claddon Hotel is being used by the Home Office to provide temporary accommodation for asylum seekers. The Mears Group manages the site under contract to the Home Office. Falkirk Council is not involved in deciding who is placed at the hotel, has no say in how it is run, and no role in managing the daily arrangements. The costs of accommodation and meals are met in full by the Home Office. Allowances for those living there also come from the Home Office. Falkirk Council does not provide any financial assistance to the asylum seekers staying in the hotel. Our homelessness service is not part of these arrangements. No asylum seekers have been fast-tracked into council housing. Falkirk Council has statutory responsibilities that apply equally to anyone living in our area.
Excuse me, the hearings went off.
Okay, thank you. Falkirk Council has statutory responsibilities that apply equally to anyone living in our area. If an asylum seeker requires, for example, healthcare, social work support, or social care, our staff may become involved. That is the extent of our direct role. We also work with partners, including Police Scotland, NHS Forth Valley, the Third Sector, Mears, and the Home Office, to manage any local impacts and make sure that safety and well-being are prioritised. It is important to be absolutely clear that asylum seekers go through security and identity checks before they are accommodated. These checks are carried out by the Home Office. Information is shared with Mears and with partners where that is needed. Suggestions that people are moved here without any checks or oversight are simply not true. While there will always be an important right to protest and assemble as an essential part of our democratic process, some of what we saw at the weekend outside the Claddon Hotel was deeply concerning. Protests that target vulnerable people and repeat false claims do real harm. They can create division, spread fear, and do not reflect the values of Falkirk as a community. Intimidation and abuse are not acceptable. Our responsibility as a council is to provide facts and to challenge misinformation and to build community cohesion. We will continue to do that. Our role is also to work constructively with partners and residents to ensure that concerns are dealt with in a respectful and responsible way. Falkirk has a long history of people arriving here and contributing to our local life. Many families in Falkirk today have roots in other countries and cultures. That tradition continues. Diversity makes Falkirk stronger. It brings new skills, ideas, and traditions. It makes our economy more resilient and our cultural life richer. Communities that are open and inclusive are communities that thrive. So in closing, let me be clear, Convener, Falkirk Council has no role in placing or funding asylum seekers at the Cladden Hotel. That responsibility rests with the Home Office and with mayors. Our homelessness service and our housing service are not involved. What we do have is a responsibility to safeguard community safety, provide factual information, and uphold the principle that everyone deserves dignity and respect. We will continue to set the record straight when false claims are made. We will continue to work with partners to address local issues, and we will continue to support a community where people can live safely and where difference is respected. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Kenneth, and I'm sure those words will be echoed by all members. Move on now to item 3, which is the minute of the meeting held on the 19th of June. Are we, first of all, happy to accept that as a true record?
Agreed.
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 Okay. Is there any matter arising on that minute? No. Okay, we'll now move on to the rolling action log, and I'll turn to Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Convener. And as usual, the rolling action log provides a record of those decisions of the executive where a further report has been called for. There is an expected reporting date provided. Where that isn't expected to be met or hasn't been met, there are comments at the side to explain the reason for that. There is no decision to be made on the rolling action log, but it's available for members' questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions in relation to the rolling action log? No. Happy to agree.
Agreed.
Okay, we move into our education section and so education executive membership. Firstly, are there any questions that anybody would wish to ask in relation to the report? No. Councillor Murtagh?
Thanks, Convener. It's in relation to point 4.6 on the paper, and it's just really to ask Mr. Reid about. It states there are places for 2 parent representatives at the executive who were nominated by the Falkirk Area Parent Forum, and goes on to list their names. I don't believe that is currently the correct what has happened in this case, although I believe that is correct overall. But in terms of the Falkirk Area Parent Forum, because our reps were not selected from that this time round, can you give an update as to where we are with the reformation of the Parent Forum and getting our parent voices back into the decision-making bodies?
Okay.
I can. Thanks, Leader. Yeah, thanks for your question, Councillor Murtagh. And I believe one of the officers from our parental engagement team has been in touch with you about this. So we've had the initial meeting to re-establish the Falkirk Area Parent Forum, which was a really high turnout and represented by the vast majority of parent councils. And there's some ongoing work with officers to now firm up the terms of reference for that group in the schedule of meetings. And that, I believe, is due to be undertaken by the end of September. And we will have a newly re-established Falkirk Area Parent Forum, which we're delighted about.
Thank you. And I would thank the officers. I did receive a reply yesterday, which I know you were copied into, or else I would not have sprung such a question on you with no notice. However, I just want to ask, given that our current representatives, who do an excellent job, but they're not currently part of the parent forum, and I don't know if there is communication. Can you tell me how our current representatives are being supported to basically access the information and to help liaise with the parent body generally, so that they can be representative? Are we bringing those two bodies together to try to give support?
Thanks, Councillor Murtagh. I mean, the answer to that is once the Falkirk Area Parent Forum is re-established, and obviously that's a point for discussion on the representatives on this executive. But what I can say, I mean, these are long-serving members, is my understanding, on the executive. They are always invited to a pre-meeting with myself and the heads of service where we go over any papers or any questions that they may have. So they're supported in advance of the meetings. They're not here today, obviously, and some apologies have been submitted. But yeah, it certainly will be something and a role for the Falkirk Area Parent Forum to address once it's re-established.
Thank you. I look forward to that, and I think it's imperative given what we've just gone through with education. It's been really regrettable we haven't had that, but I would urge officers to make every effort to make sure that is up and running as soon as possible, and I know you will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll just move on now to the report. We'll take that as read, and I'm pleased to say that we have newly appointed pupil representatives, and we have two of them with us today. We've got Lucy Jack and Xander Schultz, who I'm sure will give you a very warm welcome. As per the decision by the executive, there is also a named substitute, Lara Simpson. Lara's not with us today, but she is available to stand in if either Lucy or Xander's not available. But I do hope you enjoy the committee. I hope that this might not be the one that you're getting stuck in and involved in, but I hope you'll be able to contribute to future meetings. And I'm sure that will be echoed by all members. So I'm happy to move the report to accept the representatives as per intimated. Councillor Sinclair.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so I'm happy to second the report. I'd just like to mention Roisin Kirk and Rory Edwards, our former pupil representatives, and wish them the best of luck. But welcome to Lucy and Xander. I'm sure we all are really looking forward to hearing their contributions and anything we've got to discuss.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hannah.
I would just like to echo that. I, have no amendments to this. Roisin and Rory did a superb job and contributed a great deal to this executive over their time, and I look forward to Lucy and Xander doing the same.
Thank you. We don't have Councillor Kerr, but any other group leaders wish to make comment briefly, I would add.
On behalf of the independents, it's nice to be mentioned, but great welcome. Your predecessors have proved their mettle and made us think on many occasions. So we obviously look forward to your contribution. My advice is don't be afraid to speak, and let us hear what you think.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr, do you wish to make any comment or to welcome our new pupil representatives?
It's welcome. I don't know if enjoying is the right word that I would use, but don't be frightened to press the buzzer and put your views across. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you everybody for that. We will move on now to item 6, which is a proposal to consult on enhanced provision. We will begin with questions, and I'm going to make this very clear right now that it is questions, not political statements, not long drawn out questions that we have had in the past. If you don't quickly get to the question, I will stop and intervene. But I will now open this item up for any questions in relation to the proposal. Councillor Nimmo.
Thanks, convener. This item is a
proposal to consult, but we don't have any of the consultation questions. I did ask on Monday if they could be made available, but I believe they haven't actually been drawn up yet. Can that be confirmed?
Deborah?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we have worked on the questions and we are finalising those. These will be pertinent to the wide range of stakeholders that we've identified within the report and relevant to the different methods that we have stated in the relation to how we will carry those out. Some of the questions will be pertinent to specific groups and obviously some will be wider, but we can ensure those are shared, but they are being progressed to start the consultation.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Convener.
Thank you. Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Convener. Can I just ask a couple of questions? First of all, the percentage of pupils across our primary schools that are identified as having additional support needs.
Thank you. We record children who have additional support needs in CMIS. So some of those children are what we would call stage 2 and above in our staged intervention framework. So children who are supported at a universal stage or stage 1 aren't counted in those numbers. So across the continuum, we only look at recording children who are stage 2, 3 and 4. In Falkirk Council in total, we've got about 8,000 children with a recorded ASN need. Just over half of that would sit in the primary school. We have approximately 270 children in our EPs, and we've started to record in CMIS children who are at stage 3 and 4 so that we can analyse exactly what level of need is in every school. So at the moment we've got 1,100 pupils across stage 3 in primary and secondary, and that equates to about 700 pupils with recorded need at stage 3 in our primary schools currently, plus the 270 who are recorded as being in our enhanced provision. So about 1,000 pupils in primary.
Sorry, can I just add that it's just important to note additional support needs covers quite a range. So it can range from perhaps a family bereavement, emotional support, dyslexia, right through to our most complex and significant needs. So it's just to understand when we record ESN, it is quite a spectrum.
Thank you very much for those responses. I mean, there's been much in the press, the media generally, about the increasing numbers of young people who require additional support. I wonder if you could say a little about the additional resources that may have come from the Scottish Government to support this.
Yeah, I can comment on that. You know, all local authorities received a share of an allocation specifically to address the increasing need of young people being identified with additional support needs. Falkirk's share of that is around £850,000. The paper today is talking about the redistribution or consultation for redistribution of resources that are tied up with our enhanced provision model, which is in 15 of our 47 primary schools. The resource attached to that is over £3.1 million. So what we're talking about is about the spread of resource concentrated in 15 of our primary schools with 3.1 million over our 47 primary schools. And the resource will follow the child. That's really important to mention that. The additional £850,000, the ASN team have drawn up plans on how we're going to use that money to enhance the work we do. Much of that will focus on professional learning, as is intended by the money, for all of our class teachers, not just those in ASM specialist provisions, but all of our class teachers who deal on a daily basis with young people with additional support needs. And then there's a focus on some specific training programs as well to support within our different provisions. So we've £3.1 million specifically for enhanced provisions, but those staff and all staff will also benefit from the wider 50,000 allocation from the Scottish Government.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of quick points. First of all, the consultation. Can you just say a little? I know there's some parts of the report cover it, but say a little about how you're going to ensure that those parents of the children with additional support needs are given every opportunity to give their views.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Councillor Hannah. So we have our Participate Plus survey, which will go out to everyone. We'll promote that really widely, so we get as many people responding to that as possible. Our schools will help us support the promotion of that, and there will be questions. So the survey is one survey, and when you go into it and you tick boxes about who you are, you will be directed to specific questions that will help us understand how this affects you more personally, as well as wider views. There are specific questions about the principles of enhanced provision and what parents might want to see in a catchment school, whether they have a child in an EP or not. So we're really looking to co-design what that support will look like to make sure that if there are things that our enhanced provisions don't currently offer that our parents and pupils want or are interested in, that will be captured by our survey. There is a section at the end where people can make any comments they like, and that is unlimited. So we'll get people will be able to say everything that they want to say about our approach. We will also have focus groups in our schools, especially with our EP parents. We really need to understand what is important to them. We have spoken to parents previously, a couple of years ago, our ASM Parent Forum, and we understood that they want the best support wherever that is. So we just need to understand what is the best support, what does that mean to our parents, our families and our children, and how would we then take that forward to make that happen. We will also have public meetings in each geographical area so that people can come along and hear what we're saying, ask questions, and again, that will be represented. They can represent their views. That will all be recorded. So we're hoping we have a really rich, full response from all of our parents, and our nurseries and early years establishments as well would be part of that consultation, and as well as wider elected members, Education Scotland trade unions, as has been listed, and our partners, as has been listed in the paper.
Thank you very much. Obviously, as everyone knows, I'm very keen on ensuring that the consultation is as wide as possible, and it sounds as if that is being undertaken in this case. And I look forward to the reports coming back afterwards.
Could I maybe just add to that, Convener? Okay, thank you. It's remiss of me, actually. I should have introduced Kerry Drinnan, in case you're wondering who's providing the responses. So Kerry Drinnan is our Quality Improvement Manager within Education Services for ASN and Inclusion. So she leads up all of this, and that's why she's providing some of the responses. But the full list of stakeholders that will be involved in the consultation is in section 6.3 of the report, and it will be online and in person.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, I've got Councillor Spears now, I've got Councillor Murtagh.
Okay, I'd like to thank the Director for the briefing. I'm sure we'll get further briefings regarding this once the consultation's finished. Can you tell me the percentage of children in our district that is in need of extra support?
Thank you, Councillor. So it recorded, as we spoke earlier about the number of children with additional support needs, 39% of our school pupils are recorded as having an additional support need, and that is right across the spectrum, as I mentioned, some temporary, some short-term need. Across our early years, our enhanced provisions, we have 273 children who are currently attending our 15 enhanced provisions. And these are children who are recorded at stage 3 of our staged intervention framework. However, across all our schools, children currently in mainstream recorded at stage 3 of the staged intervention framework, there are, sorry, Kerry.
In primary at stage 3, it is approximately 700 pupils. We are supporting our schools to record that figure so that we make sure it's accurate year on year so that we can analyse and provide the right support at the right time for schools and resources.
Is there any common denominators then that 39% of our children need this special attention? I mean, child poverty, stuff like that.
Yeah, so through the ASN continuum that's recorded, the highest number, and it does change every year, but the top 5 are usually, the recorded needs are for family issues, which would be impacted by poverty, well-being, autism and social communication difficulties. They're usually in the top 3. And moderate learning difficulties is always in the top 3 as well. So the top 5 change all the time, but they're the ones for Falkirk Council. So we've got the census coming up in September, and that will refresh our figures. So we'll get a really good understanding of the level of need and the type of need that relates to and the prevalence of that in Falkirk Council ready for next session.
Well, it's very sad to hear that child poverty is creating this situation at such a high cost. You're saying 3.1 million is what we have to spend on it.
Yeah, just to clarify that, there's the 3.1 million is the resource attached to our current enhanced provisions, and what that allows is for 270 young people to receive additional targeted support for very specific learning difficulties, for specific additional support needs. The wider additional support for learning budget is much greater than that, because obviously we have our specialist provisions which deal with our stage 4 children in secondary and in primary, and then there's the resource which all schools are allocated to deal with any other children who have any kind of additional support need. So it's much greater in terms of the 3.1 million. That's just for a very specific targeted resource.
Will we get all the facts and figures at a briefing then?
Yes, I mean that information is available, absolutely. But this paper is around asking permission to begin the statutory consultation for the redistribution of resources for our enhanced provision young people in centres.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Murtagh.
Thanks, Convener. Firstly, so the report in 4.2 mentions the ASL review that had been done that commenced in 2024. I just wanted to ask, because it says that all stakeholders were engaged with, and I just want to ask how stakeholders such as parents and pupils were engaged with during the review that started in October 24.
Thank you, Councillor Murtagh. What I'm going to do is ask Kirsty Ferguson, who is the project lead for the ASN review, to give some detail about the engagement that she has carried out with stakeholders as part of our review.
Thank you. So with regards to our parents and our young people, there was a Participate Plus survey that went out to all parents, so not just children and parents with additional support needs or parents with children with additional support needs, but any parent was able to answer on the Participate Plus platform with regards to additional support in Falkirk Council. From that, we were then able to lead on to working with our young people within their settings. So our young people were engaged for their views with people that they were most familiar with, the trusted adults that they work with every day. So while the framework was standard and there was a set of standard questions and ways to carry that out, it was then tailored to the children and their needs specifically, because not all children with additional support needs, as obviously has been highlighted, are potentially able to answer in the same ways or carry that out in the same way. So that was done in a safe, supported way within their settings, whilst also keeping that consistency in terms of what we were trying to gather of their views of the young people and how they feel supported, or how else we can support them within Falkirk Council with regards to their additional needs.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that. Just in terms of the kind of parental response rates, have you got any detail on the kind of response percentages that we had, or even just the numbers in terms of those parents who responded who've got children within enhanced provision?
We had almost 700 responses from across the authority, and we do have the specific information that we can pull out with regards to parents who highlighted that they have children in a specialist setting. Obviously, some of those specialist settings won't be the enhanced provisions, and then we're able to take the difference between if a child is at, for example, Carring Grange, if they're in an enhanced provision, if they're in a stage 4 setting within primary. So we have been able to draw upon that information prior to this proposal, so as to understand the landscape and how we could propose to best meet the needs of all children in all settings, so that actually there are not just children benefiting from the enhanced provisions in 15 settings, but we can actually adhere to what works best and then spread that across all of our settings and all of our schools.
Okay, thank you. Kind of reading through the report and the proposal, I didn't unfortunately have the benefit of being able to get to briefing. In terms of, it states very clearly in the proposal paper, it's not a return to a one-size-fits-all type model, and I think everybody's very glad to hear that. However, are we confident that going from a concentrated model of 15 if you like, centres of excellence, which therefore concentrate support that we haven't thus far been able to provide across all of our primary estate, are we confident that we would be able to have that same level of resource in each of the primary schools? And how will we achieve that given the limitations of our school estate?
I'll maybe answer this one if that's okay. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Murtagh. I mean, I think what we need to be clear about, 270 young people benefit from that resource in 15 primaries. They're not in that resource full time, so they will be because obviously the presumption of mainstream, we want them in mainstream schools, and we want them to join in with the activities of the rest of their class and their peers as possible. But sometimes they need a more targeted approach and a smaller group setting, and that's what the EP provides. You'll also have read in the report that there are stage 3 children who were not successful through the allocation process of gaining a place within the enhanced provision. And schools don't just say, oh, well, they didn't get a place, they didn't need to get on with it. Schools are very creative with the resources that they get, and within their allocation of staff and resources. And so they have created their own, I think it's referred to in the report as a shadow version of enhanced provision. So they have set that up with the resources that they have got. And they're very, very successful. And there's a couple of examples in the report that describes the approach that schools take. So I think it's around 2/3 of the schools almost have a copy version of what an enhanced provision is, but they don't get any of the resource that is currently attached to the 15 specialist enhanced provision resources. So what would happen is that if there were 15 children, and I'm just going to use school X as the terms here, if there are 15 children currently in school X in an enhanced provision, there would be allocated appropriate resources. But if that resource is going to be spread out across all of the 47 primary schools, then some of those 15 children may transition to their local catchment school. So if 5 of those children went to school Y, then the resources would follow into school wise, so that they are able to do and to continue to provide that specialist support. So there will be less children in each school with enhanced provision, but the resource will be spread so that schools can make best use of that, and so that more children will be able to benefit from that support and expertise. And that's what some of the additional 860,000, whatever it is, the additional money coming from the Scottish Government will be used to support, so that all staff who are already dealing with stage 3 children, but so that they feel better supported to deal with that ever-increasing growth in children with ASM, particularly in stage 3.
Thank you. Absolutely, and not just from the report, but I'm sure from our caseload, many of us will understand that the disappointment for some parents who do want their children to go to enhanced provision that are not able to get in. I think what I'm asking, I hope that the additional money will be enough to give extra staffing resource and other resource to every school to enable that transfer of expertise. But the report mentions like the creation of additional spaces and classrooms, etc. If that need is there, what do we do where we don't have the ability to do that within our primary schools, where there are capacity issues, etc.? Has every primary school been assessed that this is a viable option?
And the short answer to that is yes, Councillor Murta. I mean, the overall occupancy across our primary estate is, I haven't got the most up-to-date figures obviously at the moment from the census, but it's around 60%. So the vast majority of schools have spaces where they can use as breakout spaces, or they've development and nurture spaces or small group spaces. But even in schools where there are high occupancies, there are other spaces that they have been able to utilise and use, but absolutely would make sure that schools are supported to implement whatever it is they need to do. And it may be that in some schools it's not required at all, because there may not be any enhanced provision stage 3 children transitioning or in that particular school. But the vast majority of schools do have stage 3 children. We'd have the appropriate space.
Thank you. I mean, I've got a number. Sorry, Kirsty, you want to come back in?
No, it was just to add to that as well, that it's as much about the children who will be coming through the system in the future as it is about the current children, because obviously there are children who we are not yet aware of or whose needs have not yet been investigated, and in the future these children would be able to, if this proposal was to go through, this was successful and we were to consult on co-design, as was mentioned, then we would be ready for the children who will come through in the future in their local communities, as opposed to the current system where there are panels, there are referrals, and very often the need for transportation and moving out with their catchment and their local area, which is what this would be for the future, as much as the children for now as well.
Thank you. The principle I very much agree with. It's just achieving it in that spirit of GIRFIC. Just finally then, I know that there's a proposal for one meeting and one in-person meeting and one online meeting. Obviously this particular cohort as well maybe have additional challenges for attending meetings that all parents face these, but I think this cohort has recognised it can be very challenging. If it was required, if it was possible or needed, could additional meetings be arranged? Because I'm just concerned that this really does need the input of those with this lived experience especially, and I'm not sure that one meeting in person is really sufficient for that. Is it flexible?
Thank you, Councillor Murta. Yes, of course, even the timings of meetings will be important, often for families who have children with additional support needs, being able to attend meetings out with the school day when they're the main carers for their child is difficult. So the consideration even to timings and how we hold those and where will be absolutely considered.
Thank you, convener.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Mr. Chalmers and then I'll turn to Councillor Sinclair to move the report.
Yeah, it's just, I think, I obviously met previously with Deborah and the Falkirk Council, just with a couple of things. As a primary school representative, I think it's just important to ask just a couple of questions. I think they've been sort of asked off table, but just so it's aware for all members as well, just to make sure that although this is a proposal to take it to consultation, it's just to see where we have got proper funding going into these within the class in the schools, rather than it being diluted. The examples that are given obviously are fantastic, where there's no EP in place and schools are supporting their young people who are of various degrees of need. Stage 3, as we will sometimes call them, but they're being supported. But some of these projects look as if they're being supported with PEF money or money that's from other funding. The worry is that if this is all going to be diluted out and pushed out, the expertise is definitely going to be spread in a wider area. And I know there is plans for to bring in from the report, bring in other bits and pieces. But my worry is that that the funding is going to not go to the right place at the right time to make sure that we are supporting our youngest and most vulnerable in there. It's just to make sure that ensure that we've got the correct funding is going forward, and it isn't supported by PEF, as we know, might not last longer, and other supports that maybe from central government might not always be there in the future either. So it's just how do we ensure that it doesn't last for a few years and then suddenly we've got young people who are not being supported the best they can, and they're, as I agree, being in their own catchment school is the best for them. I do agree with that, but how do we ensure that that we are giving the best for these some of our most vulnerable children across the school authority? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. I mean, I think it would be wonderful if all funding streams were permanent and we knew that we were always going to get that. In terms of schools using their PEF money creatively, I think it is excellent that they have been able to use that money to help support the poverty-related attainment gap. And many of the not all, but some of the young people that are in these specialist provisions are absolutely benefiting from that. So they're getting maximum use out of that money. But that is temporary funding, although we do hear that there's the talk of that funding being continued in whatever format that is. Schools are already used to dealing with stage 3 young people, so I do believe there is expertise within all schools in terms of dealing with young people who are, I hate putting young people into boxes and into stages and categories, but who have that additional support need identified. So I do believe there's expertise there. And I believe the spread of this funding will just allow schools to be more creative and to develop the expertise they've got to develop or to support those young people that are may or may not be coming their way, but certainly in the future, as Kirsty has explained, will be coming their way as they come through the system as well. But obviously, head teachers and representatives like yourself will be fully involved in that consultation and that discussion. And I think I need to emphasise that this report is about permission for a statutory consultation, and all of those points will be able to be picked up during the course of the consultation. But they're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patterson, I had intimated I will make an exception, providing it's a very, very brief question and a very brief answer, because I'm very aware we need to move on.
I really appreciate that, convener, and I promise it is a quick one and hopefully a quick answer. Just off the back of what John asked there and the concerns about PEF funding, am I right in understanding that actually a lot of local authorities already have moved towards this model of having it in each school rather than having it concentrated, and that their PEF funding has been unaffected by that.
Yes, that's correct. Different authorities support their young people in different ways.
So fast.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll go to Councillor Sinclair to move the report.
Thanks, convener. I think there's been a lot of ground covered with the questions and answers. It's been a very informative session this morning, so I don't intend to take up much time. I think from the report we can see that there is an increasing level of need within all of our communities, within all of our school catchment areas, and I think that the information that's coming through is that head teachers and staff within primary schools and in our primary sector at the moment are being very innovative, as they always are, in trying to meet the level of need within their specific setting. This is obviously movement, and what we're agreeing today is moving to a consultation phase, which will undoubtedly hear from those people who have the most need and who are the most important voices in this. We need to hear from them. We need to hear from as wide a cohort as possible. And I would encourage anybody in agreeing the consultation today, I would encourage anybody who has a voice to feed into that. Because as our officers, and as Kerry quite eloquently put earlier on, this is an opportunity to co-design. I think Kirsty mentioned it as well. This is an opportunity to co-design a service that meets the level of need within our communities, and widens that out to all of our area rather than concentrating it in one specific area. And I think that moving to a model that seeks to get it right for every child and seeks to improve and enhance their experience in accessing their education is the absolute right thing to do. Now, with that, convener, I'll move the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. Councillor Devine?
Happy to second.
Thank you. I will now go to group leaders for a very brief comment, not a political statement, please, a brief comment in relation to their support in the paper, as there's no amendment.
Thank you, convener. I can be very brief. I look forward to seeing the return report, and we will deal with that when it comes to us.
Thank you. Councillor, Bailey Kerr?
No comment.
Councillor Spears?
I certainly look forward to future briefings where we're kept up to date and very aware. Greatly concerned about the 39% that are in need of this service. So getting it right for every child is just a statement. Getting it right for every child is an action.
Can I just highlight to all members that officers are available to answer questions or briefings at any time, and it helps if members actually make the approach first and ask for those. Councillor Murtagh, do you have any further comment?
Thanks, convener. Just to say, I also look forward to the report, but I may have had an amendment. I've been a bit undisposed over the last few days, but I think with it would be around making sure that additional meetings might be possible, or flexibility for those, and officers have given a commitment on that this morning, so I'm happy with that. But I think that the importance of hearing for those views and the full consideration is what's critical in this aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to agree the report.
Agreed.
Thank you for that. It brings us to the end of our education section of the paper, and I will have a short recess to allow colleagues that need to go, but I will intimate firstly that I intend to reorder the items on the agenda for the next section and bring forward the review of the swimming pools update report. We have a deputation request. Can I just confirm that people are content that we hear that?
Agreed.
Okay, we'll bring that forward, and that'll be the next item on the agenda, and we'll have a 10-minute comfort break. Okay, thank you very much for that, everybody, and we will come back into session. And we're moving into item 9, the review of the swimming pools. As I indicated before the recess, we have a deputation. I'm going to now ask the deputation to come forward, and very well done, and thank you. We'll hear your presentation. You have 10 minutes, and then there's the opportunity of another 10 minutes of questions from members. So whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you very much, and thanks for everyone agreeing to let me speak at the deputation today. Just for everyone here, my name is Kieran McGuckin. I am the director at Evolution Swim School, a local learn to swim company that offers swimming lessons in Falkirk 4 days a week. I've been asked today to speak on behalf of the private sector for the learn to swim companies, not only learn to swim, but parent and toddler companies that operate within the local area as well, and to give a reality of what this price increase is going to, how it's going to affect the private sector moving forward in the local area. Before I put the case forward, I just do also want to say thank you for all the councillors that voted on the original SPR to save the pools, to allow the opportunity to continue to provide provision to our communities. Again, just showing our appreciation, and it's not just myself, it's all the kind of private learn to swim companies that are working within the area. So before I go through the, like I said, the reality of what this increase is actually going to have an outcome to the private companies for the learn to swim, is just a bit of a understanding of who we are. We are family-owned businesses. My office is a table in my kitchen, and we operate within the local community, and that is the case for all the private companies as well that operate within the learn to swim industry. We're not big conglomerates, and these increases are going to have effects not on only our businesses but our lives as well. So that is, it's something that's very near and dear, and we don't want to make it too emotive. We want to just make sure that we can try and keep our businesses open and providing learn to swim provision for our local communities. We've also got Tanya from Swim Vibe is with us today in the gallery. She's kindly provided a cash flow for Swim Vibe, who operate solely at Graham High School in the Falkirk area, that are subject to these price increases, and this can be made available for all the councillors to see as well. At the current rates, they are losing £1,000 per year with this price increase. They are essentially glorified volunteers to the local community and having to pay for the gratitude of doing it. This is not something that is sustainable for going forward. And this is felt and resonated across all the facilities and all the private learn to swim companies that provide provisions within the community. At the moment, the private sector has decided to continue with the majority of their provisions, but there has been scaling back. There has been alterations to services. There's been cutting of staff as well, and it's paid through gritted teeth. And it's only due to the feel and the community that we've built within Falkirk, and not wanting to stop the provision to our swimmers that we provide across the various locations that we use. Now again, kind of going to the reality, a good case example is Boness Academy. The rollout for Boness started a little bit earlier than the other provisions for the Falkirk Council. And when it was after the recreation centre got closed, the council started to take over the control of the hire there. When the price increases were put in place, the current providers pulled out almost immediately due to that. Now, I spoke on the deputation for the original SPR in 2023, and I told you at the time, if we were offered pool time at the rates that they were then, your hand would be bitten off. That is not the case now, and at the rates is not something that will go forward for any private learn to swim provider. They're not sustainable for kind of any type of growth within that part of the community. The forecast was 48,000 from January 2024. That's zero for right now. There's no private learn to swim companies or parent and toddler groups within Bowness. Graham High School is forecast 125,000. Currently, said that has been paid, but a small economic downturn in the local community will result in less learn to swim being used in the private learn to swim, and that will cause closures for these companies. They'll have to pull out of the Falkirk area, and these closures can then lead to no income from the council that they've accounted for within that. And if the pools aren't being used and not generating any income, the SPR for these pools could come back on the table, and that's not for me to say, but if they're not being used and not generating any income, that would, I imagine, be the case. And if so, what was the point of keeping it open in the first place? And that is essentially the reality of where we are just now to looking forward. Now, you might say, why do we need the private learn to swim companies within Falkirk Council? We want to thrive with a mixed economy, providing different options available for everyone. Falkirk Council have a vast learn to swim programme and have done really well over the last couple of years building that, but it is not suitable for everyone. Private learn to swim companies provide smaller ratios. We offer more flexibility within sessions, and a discussion that was earlier on today about the provision of ASN and neurodivergency. Now, again, Falkirk Council does have a small provision of that within their programme, but private learn to swim companies can offer more flexibility where a one-to-one session is needed, and that is prevalent across the whole of Falkirk Council. And again, without the private sector, that's something that will be drastically impacted going forward. Another part, and this is just from, so I said, I'm director at Evolution Swim School. We are the learn to swim provider, but we also have an educational wing within our company. This summer, we provided a learn to swim training programme. We had 8 young people through that, given them the opportunity for future careers and progression. We also funded places for 3 students at a local high school, giving them the opportunity for going forward. If we are not operating as a learn to swim company, it's not something that's going to be feasible going forward, and it will make that access to the industry more difficult for our local young people. And again, this is just from our company. I don't have the numbers for all the other providers, but we have 18 provisions of staff in this local area. That stimulates the local economy. And like I said, our office is our home. We live in Falkirk as well. And an effect on the company's operations are going to have a kind of rippling effect through the local economy as well. Like I said, it would be 18 staff that we have, and that's mirrored across all different organisations that do work within the council area. That's just a view from us as a private sector. We're not looking for a charity. These prices of £160 an hour are extremely high, and we're just looking for a little bit of a parity, just to keep the provision of the services that we have had and going forward. Like I said, to ensure that we can have a thriving mixed economy within the Falkirk area. And if there's any questions, please do ask.
Thank you for that. There's now the opportunity for up to 10 minutes for members to ask questions of Mr McGuckin. Councillor Spears.
Thank you. Thank you for that very succinct delivery. What concerns me is global warming. As the summers get hotter, and having been the father of a very adventurous son, you have great concerns about them jumping the canal and the River Forth and etc. So it was always vital for me to learn to swim. But the times that the council provided and the local place provided were not always adequate, and I never knew there was these private companies at the time, or I would have certainly took advantage of it. So I think we as a council should be helping you, because you're providing a safety net and a security for parents and a safety net for children if they can learn to swim. And as the summers get hotter and the invitation of open water is even more advanced, then I think it's vitally important we give every help possible, make sure that our kids swim in the future.
Councillor Spears, I'll let that go, but that was not a question. This is questions only, and I'm going to be very, very strict on it and not political statements.
I think it was a question for the committee.
No, it wasn't, but that's not where we're even at by way of questions.
I can answer as if it was a question. Thank you. And I would just like to say, and I appreciate you saying that the council should support us, and that's not necessarily the feeling of the private Learn to Swim community. We're not looking for a charity case. We're not asking you guys to subsidise us. It's just for an opportunity to continue. And with the amendment that the £120 is a fair place for us to be able to continue our operations without the need to drastically change the way the operations are. Hopefully that answers it as a question.
Thank you. Other if you put your light on, let me know.
All right.
Okay.
I wasn't wanting the background noise. No, thank you. That was a very detailed deputation. I suppose the questions I've got is, the first one is, what changes have already been made by the independent swim schools to absorb the increased costs? You know, I think you spoke about some of them have had to reduce their days, they've had to increase their class sizes, and raising there's been some fees raised as well. Could you maybe go into detail about what you have done with the class sizes and the percentages of how much you have had to raise your fees?
Yep, so I can talk a little bit on SwimVibe and ourselves. So for SwimVibe, they've increased their fees by 15%, and they have had to reduce their amount of hours in terms of their provision and change the way that they're structured the lessons, which takes away from that mixed economy already, from the provisions that they already had that was part of their KPS. So that's in terms of SwimVibe. For ourselves, we have raised our fees by 22%. Now, we also operate out with Falkirk Council. We operate in Edinburgh and Fife, and those are subsidising our lets in Falkirk. The increase in our provision of swimming lessons does not nearly cover the increase in cost to our pool hire. So we are having to subsidise from our lessons in Edinburgh, Fife, and our educational part of the company is subsidising the Learn to Swim programme, just to keep provisions currently where they are.
Just leading on from that, how have parents and families responded to the increased lesson fees? Have you seen any difference in participation?
Yeah, so again, with the increase in prices, it may take, again, like I said, for ourselves, we increased by 22%, which is a very sizable amount in our Learn to Swim, and it was to make sure that we could, as like I said, at the moment it's through gritted teeth, and we've had to do what we've had to do to keep it going. But there's been a massive amount of learners that is now unattainable. Those that wanted to have smaller class sizes, or children with ASN that needed one-to-one situations where it's now not attainable for them due to the prices. And we have a lot of support from parents, but there's also a lot of unhappy rest in terms of what we're doing, and they will be looking for elsewhere. And again, it just puts a stranglehold on the private Learn to Swim companies that we're essentially walking on eggshells. Like I said, a small downturn. If there's lots of things going on in Falkirk at the moment with jobs, the refinery, with the bus company. A small thing like that could have a massive impact, and swimming is now out of reach for hundreds and hundreds of families. It's also not that it's just a few families across the private sector. There's thousands of children that are getting a provision of swimming lessons, and that's who at the end of the day impacts. So I think, again, Tanya, with us having a a more mixed approach in terms of we operate in different regions. Our footfall is obviously slightly different, but for Swim Vibe, who operate solely in Falkirk, they had a 25% drop off with their increase in prices, and that is the reality of how many they're losing, and that was just this term. As things go on, like I said, it gets to Christmas, things get tighter. That likely increase as well.
Thanks. And just on a kind of quick clarity question on the back here, you said obviously we were talking about there's 1-to-1 lessons, but when I visited Swim Vibe last night, it was there was some maybe 1-to-4 lessons, 1-to-6 lessons, but it's not the case that the whole pool would just be used for that. Yous are quite good at hire the pool, but there can be 4 or 5 different lessons going on at the same time.
Yeah, so especially with this is where there's, I guess, the flexibility with the private sector. We can have different types of lessons operate at different times. If you were only operating a 1 lesson, it would be completely unsustainable. You were paying £160 for 1 person plus your staff costs and your insurances and all that kind of thing. So we do try to maximise our pool space to make it as effective as possible. And that can be a case of there can be group lessons going on and some private lessons, like I said, to utilise the pool space and making the most out of what we have available to us.
And I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but how many children do you think currently rely on the independent swim schools?
So I can comment for, if you take just Evolution Swim School and Swim Vibe, it would be around 670 kids in Falkirk. And there is many other private swim schools. I know that there's a parent and toddler group that use Braes High as a facility that are considering their position as well. That's another 150 members. So within those 3 swim schools, there is just under 800 members, and there's a of other private independent schools that work within the community. I would gather it's well over 1,000, closer to 1,500 that are using the private sector as well.
Well, thanks. That's a bit more than I thought, actually. That's I suppose this will be my final question, but it was kind of touched it in your speech. But do you think you were speaking about what happened at Bo'ness, but if the prices do remain at the 190 level, do you think that the pools are going to be used less and we could have pools sitting empty, generating no income at all?
So I like you said, I kind of touched on it when it was kind of pre these prices. If any pool hire come up, it would get snapped out of your hands. Right now, if, for example, ourselves or Swim Vibe do not continue their let, then I can categorically say it will not be picked up by a private user. That is, the cost is unsustainable and it's an insurmountable barrier to overcome unless you have a private funder that's giving you loads of money basically to start it up.
Thanks. And sorry, but there was a final question that I'd got my notes to ask you about. It was one of the things the officer brought up is if you were VAT registered, you wouldn't need to pay VAT. But I've since found out that you are VAT registered, and that I don't know if you want to talk a bit about that and how that affects you.
So with Learn to Swim providers, they are service-based essentially only. And just like any other company, over £90,000, you have to be VAT registered and start charging VAT to your customers. Now, it's a massive tipping point for Learn to Swim providers, and this is not just specifically for Falkirk, but for the nationwide. And it's actually a massive hot topic on that VAT shouldn't be charged on swimming lessons. And that's a kind of irrelevant to the point just now, but just an understanding of it. For the Learn to Swim providers, we still have to charge VAT to our members regardless, and that cost is incurred solely by them. With Learn to Swim provision, there is very little reclaiming in VAT from it. So, for example, out of all the facilities that we use, the other councils, it is all 0 rated VAT, and we're not charged VAT on pool hire. And if you are charged VAT, you have to make that income from your members that are there. And it's an unfortunate part of the industry. And like I said, there is nationwide support to try and take that away. And if that was the case, it would maybe be a bit better. But for right now, we are charged that, and we do have to charge that to our customers who cannot reclaim it as they are individuals. They're not businesses themselves.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Garner, and he'll be the last in the questions, but because that's our time used up.
Thank you, Convener. And just one quick question, and just to clarify or correct Councillor Redmond there, it's not 190, it's 160, the actual fee that's been looked at. And thanks for bringing up fees, Councillor Redmond. I know we currently charge £25.60 per month for our Learn to Swim programme, which is equivalent to £6 per 40-minute lesson. Can I ask Kieran what they actually charge?
So for our company, so for our Learn to Swim, we're £47.50 per month. We have, it's a slightly different model to the council. We charge 11 months out of a 12-month year, as we don't have any lessons on in the summer. And that is an equivalent of £13.06 per lesson. And that's for a group lesson. And we have an industry standard of 30-minute lessons for our provision. We would love to be able to run 40-minute lessons, but the costs in pool hire is not a feasible lesson duration. The council charge, I think it's £20.10 for their their 30-minute lessons, which is a more indicative price point compared to ourselves.
Sorry, that's £16 per 30-minute lesson. The figures I've got an equivalent to £6 per 40-minute lesson for ours Learn to Swim.
So for our Learn to Swim, we're £13.06 per lesson. That's the equivalent for a 30-minute lesson.
Okay, thank you very much, Kieran, for that, and for taking the time to answer the questions. If you want to return to your seat, I'll now open the matter up for members to ask questions to officers. And again, it is questions, not statements. Councillor Spears.
Yes, thank you, Convener. Did they say that we are, for the same length of time, over £20 for a lesson?
Our lessons are £25.60 a month, so 4, sometimes 5 lessons within that month, and we charge £26.50.
Sorry, I didn't catch.
So we run 4 or 5 lessons a month. We pay our lessons by monthly direct debit, and the price of that is £25.60. So it works out around about £6 per lesson.
What, are they during the day or in evenings and weekends?
Evenings and weekends. You know, whenever the lesson programme's on, evenings, weekends.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Redmond.
Could officers confirm how much additional income was actually generated from the increase in private hire charges since April 2024?
I don't have that detail directly to hand, but hopefully I'll get that within the terms of conversation. If you remember, the majority of the new charging starts as the schools have transferred back to the council from the class of 98. So I can give you details on CAT transferred schools, but not necessarily the schools that are coming into the estate, which will then operate.
Okay, thanks. So maybe get that offline or whatever. Has there been any reductions in pool usage since the £160 plus VAT charges were introduced at Bowness?
So I can give you the example from 2 sites in Denny. We put the price up in April 24. We've seen a 3% reduction in the pool bookings there, which was equivalent to just about 1.5 hours per week. That was a private provider that was operating on that site. Subsequently, another private provider has come in and taken that that slot on. So there's actually been, with the increased income, we're generating more of that part. I'm quite happy to share with you the example from Bowness, if you just give me a sec. So obviously there was 2 providers that withdrew from Bowness. From that, our sports development team mobilised to look at that provision. They pivoted, they worked with the local schools, they worked with parent councils, they worked with active schools, and what they done was they secured some funding through Cash for Kids. We then put on some free lessons for kids from Kinneil. We delivered 3 months of targeted lessons for kids at both Bowness Academy. From there, those kids have been recruited into the Learn to Swim scheme. They now pay obviously the £25.60 or £18.75 if they're on Go Card. We actually have more swimmers on that site at Bowness than previous private operators.
Okay, is that all your questions, Councillor Redmond?
That's all my questions.
Okay, right, thank you. Councillor Garner.
Thank you, Convener. I've got a couple of questions, and one was just covered there well with Robert regarding the current private provider using Denny and indeed the Bowness situation, which is very positive, I think, as well, Robert. I do welcome this very positive report we've had a deputation from the private providers, and we're also expecting an amendment to consider the discount and agreed pricing. Can you explain what impact agreement of a discount to private providers would have on the revenue?
Thanks to you, Chair, Convener. The impact of, in effect, what we're doing here is we're implementing the Council's decision of January 24. That the decision and the basis for that setting of that charging was agreed by Council, to secure effectively the school facilities. And picking up probably on one of the points Kieran raised, some of the most disadvantaged people don't access pools and Learn to Swim schemes. Actually, the real purpose of this was to secure those school facilities. Those school facilities now operate, and core PE deliver really invaluable swimming lessons to those individuals that are outside the scope of paid swimming lessons, and that was one of the purposes of the implementation of that charge. In terms of the impact of the charging, we've identified that a £40 discount from the 160 to the 120 proposed in the amendment would have an impact of about 68.8k on budgets. Given that the Council agreed in January 24, the pricing model, the £250,000 of efficiencies have already been removed from the budget, so we'd have to look at that gap, or that subsidy from revenue. So I'll share with members what that would probably look like, given that we've got limited levers, in addition to all the other savings that have got to come from sport and leisure revenue budgets. We'd probably look at increasing public swimming admission charges. We'd have to probably look at increasing our own Learn to Swim programme prices to provide that subsidy. We'd be looking probably to remove the Go Card fee poverty initiative and reinstall the £1 charge. And then if it was a longer term than 1 year programme, we'd obviously have to go back and revisit the rationalisation.
Thank you, Robert. It's pretty clear. If private providers give up space, what issues would this present for council?
So I've given the example of both Denny and Bowness. Generally, our swimming development team are in a position now that they mobilise the ongoing work alongside active schools to develop young people and people to come through and take up that capacity. We've grown the programme 22% over the last year. We're now in this position where we consolidate, we focus on the quality, and then we know the demographics area can take further growth.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Garner. Okay, I've got Bailey Kerr, I've got Councillor Hannah and Councillor Patterson.
Thanks, Convener. Can I just ask probably a follow-on question from Councillor Spears? Can I get a comparison of the two charges that was spoken earlier on from the provider and what the council charges? Because I'm sure it was for half-an-hour lessons £13 for the private provider, and is it £6 for the councils?
For a 40-minute lesson. It's £6 for a 40-minute lesson.
So the council's half the price of what the private provider is. Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. So what you've stated is it would cost, if we lowered it to 120, it would be 68,800. Is that yearly? Yearly. Okay, thank you very much. I just need them clarified.
Yeah, sorry, I realised that. Yeah, it would be 68k we've based that on a 40-week term. Generally, the term runs from August, September through to summer holiday period.
The term, right? Okay, right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, convener. I think, apart from the issue of the independent companies, this is an overall good news story, and Kieran recognised the value of keeping the pools open as we have done. I wonder if you could give me figures overall, please, for the number of children, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, is the number of people who are learning to swim overall. Do you have that figure?
So I have the council's figure, which is 3,058 people within the Learn to Swim programme.
And how has that changed?
It's gone up 20% over the last year.
Thank you.
Is that you, Councillor Hannah? Yeah.
Okay. Fine, thank you.
Robert, can I just ask you to speak up a little bit when you're speaking in the microphone? Okay, it's Councillor Patterson.
Thanks, convener, and thanks for the information so far. Yeah, I'd like to echo what Councillor Hannah just said here. This is a good news story. I know we're getting into the nitty-gritty of it, but I don't think anybody's lost sight that keeping the pools open has been a positive move. And I personally have benefited from the council's swim programme being increased, and I'm glad to see it, and I'm glad that so many people have benefited as well. But I do wonder then, given the increase that we've had in the last year, and I know that there's plans moving forward to increase our offering still, are we confident then, so in a scenario where we were to increase the prices for the independent providers, I know that Swim Vibe, I think, use Graham High every evening. Are you confident then that we have the demand that we would be able to fill every one of those slots, or is the likelihood that that pool might be sitting empty?
So I think it's important to recognise, yes, so there's the ability for the council to look at expanding provision. That's not necessarily the primary purpose of this. The whole purpose of, we're not looking to ban private providers from operating. What we're looking at is the recovery of the cost that is around about the operation of a school pool. So if you recognise, recently there was an inquiry at the Scottish Parliament where Ben Lamb from West Lothian spoke that identified that £200 an hour is roughly the cost of operating a school pool. Therefore, the £160 that we charge on that pool actually probably doesn't cost it. For our own facilities, we're not at the stage. It's about £100,000 to £140,000 a year school pool. So there's never the intent to ban operators. It's a mixed economy model. We're based there. What we need to do, though, is start to reflect the real charges of the operational cost. Other local authorities tend not to give private provision in their facilities. It mixes across the country, but in the main, that doesn't happen. That's not what we're proposing here. In terms of those slots at Graham High, we also have another private provider who have asked us to identify if any slots are given up, that they're quite happy to look at taking those slots on. So between that and our own programme's expansion, there's always going to be an element of risk, but at the moment in time, we think we can mitigate that in terms of the budgets and increase in income that we've got.
Appreciate that. And just one follow-up question would be, you know, it wasn't too long ago that we were looking at closing all the pools, and I think the change has been quite radical in the last year alone. Could you just remind me the price that we were charging for independent providers prior to when we decided to keep the pools open, versus how much of an increase would that be to the number proposed today?
I wasn't necessarily about in January 24. I don't have that
Appreciate
detail off the top of my head. I'm certainly happy to provide that for you. I mean, I think to put it in perspective, if we went to the £120 as the amendment, that would probably be over the period from January 24 to now a 6% increase for the private providers. If you consider our own length of swim provision, so it's £120. Our own length of swim provision over that period has gone up 10%. The swim team have absorbed charges increase of 280% within that period of time. Therefore, I think, you know, to take the price to just 120 would represent just about 6%. That was the data that I worked out with my team the other day.
Thanks. I do appreciate you were here at the time, and I appreciate you've given me the information that you had.
Sorry, somebody's just given me £103 it was.
So it was £103 when we were considering closing the pools, and then if we went ahead with the recommendation today, that's what. So I was just wondering if I could get
January
information
24
from
decision. Sorry, January 24 decision put the price at £160.
Yeah, I think we're getting into the realms of the debate, but I'll maybe just ask officers to maybe clarify what the decision was in January 2024, if that'd be helpful.
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate that if we could get the exact numbers, just so that I can get a picture of what the costings were before we made our decisions versus what the proposal is there. I'm just looking for the percentage increase, really. Thank you.
We'll get clarification of what the decision that was made in January for members. But I think that's come to the end of the questions. Councillor Spears, you've already had a question, but
You told me it wasn't a question, so I have a question now.
No, that was a question to the swimming club,
pertinent.
but it was yes. Okay, while we're looking for that information, I will allow you to use the time briefly.
Okay, thank you. Are we trying to price private swimming instruction out of the market?
I'm not entirely sure that's an appropriate question to be asking, so you don't have to answer that particular question. Do we have the? No, before we finish, could I maybe just ask a very brief question just around the and it might be to Mr. Binney, around the financing of that programme and how critical it was to having that graded approach to having the sustainability of the service and indeed helping to support the council.
Through you, absolutely. This just to get back to the emphasis, this report is fantastically positive news because in effect I feel like council has challenged officers to say, come on, let's see what you can do. We expect a load of income, and that was an ambitious kind of target that the officers put out to try and replace the income or savings that were required. And the report shows the team's absolutely smashed it. And, you know, we've heard that the provision is very good value. It's increased 22%. In areas where private providers have withdrawn, we've stepped into that market and increased the number of people that are swimming. We've heard that prices where they've been introduced to other facilities have led to a very, very modest reduction, and that has then been taken up by other providers. So what we have here is a real win for residents, getting good value swimming provision, as well as really important extra income for this council at a time when we face serious financial challenges and need to increase that income at every possible opportunity. So I'd like to give credit to the Sport and Leisure team for the approach that's been taken, and look forward to seeing this programme continue to develop over the coming years.
Thank you for that, Malcolm. No. We don't have, still actually looking for the report and the clarity of that, but we'll get that and it'll get shared with members as quickly as we can, hopefully during the debate. But we do have a paper and an amendment, and therefore there will be a debate, but I'll go to Councillor Garner to move the paper.
Thank you, Convener. And thanks to everybody for their questions there. Firstly, I'd like to personally thank, and on behalf of the SNP group, Malcolm, Michael, Robert, Russell, Cameron and the other officers for the excellent work so far in bringing this report forward and moving forward with the pools and swimming in general in Falkirk. This very positive update report marks a significant milestone in Falkirk Council's journey to secure the long-term sustainability of our school swimming pool estate. Following the decisions taken in January 2024, we have made great progress in implementing a standardised pricing structure, enhancing operational efficiency and strengthening community engagement throughout swimming programmes. The cornerstones of this strategy has been the expansion of the success of the Learn to Swim programme, which now serves over 3,000 children, a record level of participation. This growth not only supports vital life skills for our young people, but has also delivered a net surplus of £367,000 in 24-25, helping to reduce the overall budget gap. As we had heard from officers, this Labour amendment would jeopardise this by increasing public swimming admission costs, increase further Learn to Swim fees, and ultimately putting swimming pool closures back on the table. I'm sure none of us want to see that. We have also seen positive developments in the local amateur aquatic scene. The formation of the Falkirk Valley Tridents as a single professionally coached club has created a more cohesive and competitive structure for swimming in our area. Officers have responded pragmatically to their needs by adopting a phased pricing approach, ensuring affordability while supporting club growth. I recently received an email from Keith Waddle, the president of the club, in which he states, "Throughout the planning, transition and launch phases of the new club, we placed a strong emphasis on developing and reinforcing strategic partnerships with both Scottish Swimming and our facility provider, Falkirk Council. The team at Falkirk Council were actively involved and consistently demonstrated their support for our objectives. Their engagement reflected a sincere commitment and genuine enthusiasm for the growth and advancement of competitive swimming in the region. The support provided by Falkirk Council has remained steadfast from the start of our training as Forth Valley Tridents in January of this year to the present day. During this time, we have held ongoing discussions with council officers, addressing a range of topics, including pool booking arrangements, facility hire costs, current operational challenges, and our long-term aspirations for the club. Engaging in this collaborative relationship with Falkirk Council has enabled us to gain valuable insight into the current challenges facing our sport locally. At the same time, it has reinforced our confidence in the Council's sincere commitment to supporting our efforts and initiatives. This ongoing assurance provides a solid foundation as we continue to plan for the future growth, development and success of Falkirk Valley Tridents. I thank Keith for these reassuring words. Operationally, the Council is taking steps to align all school bookings under Council control into a centralised system, with the full implementation expected in 25-26. A clear prioritisation framework has been introduced to ensure that Council-run programmes and accredited local clubs receive priority access to facilities. This reflects our commitment to public service and community well-being while recognising the financial realities of pool operations. As we have heard, some private providers have expressed concerns about pricing changes. They have been given a commitment. Any current slots will be honoured for 25-26. It is for them as independent organisation to decide if they wish to rationalise their use. The strategy is designed to maximise income, improve sustainability and ensure that our facilities serve the widest possible public benefit. In conclusion, this report demonstrates that the Council's swimming pool strategy is delivering excellent results, financially, operationally and socially. I really thank officers for their work and invite members to note the progress made and support the continued implementation of this vital strategy. Happy to move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. And Councillor Sinclair.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. I'm content to second the report behind Councillor Gallagher, but I may wish to make contribution later in the debate. Thank you.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay.
Thank you, Convener. And I think it's maybe helpful to reflect back on the decision in January 2024 as previously been referred to. So the relevant fee, as I understand it, is that set out in paragraph 6.3 in the report that was presented to Council at that time, where in relation to private and commercial lessons, the 2023-2024 fee charged to those providers was £103.50 per hour. The proposal was that it would rise to £160, and there was an amendment to that proposal, but the amendment related to aquatic clubs, which was a separate category of user of the pools. So as far as I can see from the decision and the report, the rise from 103 to 160 was the agreed position of the Council. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was important that we clarified that. Okay, we will now go to, is it Councillor Redmond who moved the amendment?
Thanks. So, back in 2024, when we proposed the amendment that saved the pools, many said that closure was the only option, but we've proved that that wasn't the case. Keeping our pools open, we've generated additional income, created jobs, and safeguarded swimming lessons, a key life skill for every child in Falkirk. That is real progress, and I want to commend officers for delivering it. The Learn to Swim programme has expanded, more children are learning, and our local clubs are continuing to compete at a high level. But alongside those successes, we have to be honest about the challenges that independent swim schools, who play a vital role in providing lessons across our district, are telling us clearly that the current £160 per hour hire is unsustainable. If they can't survive, pools will sit empty, families will lose access to lessons, and the council will receive no income at all. Nobody benefits from that outcome. Our amendment proposes a transitional charge of £120 per hour for juvenile pool hire, reviewed in 12 months. This strikes a fair balance. It allows swim schools to continue operating and families to keep lessons accessible. It delivers more income than the historic rates. It avoids the risk of losing providers and leaving valuable pool space unused. It's not about rolling back on the hard choices. It's about making sure that the choices work in practice. Just as we showed last year with pool closures, there's a better way forward if we're willing to listen and act. Swimming is not optional, it's a life-saving skill. By supporting this amendment, we can ensure Falkirk's children continue to benefit, our pools continue to generate income, and our communities continue to thrive. And I'd urge you to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Redmond. A seconder?
Thanks, Convener. I'm pleased to second this amendment. What we're proposing today is simple and it is fair. Swimming is a life-saving skill, we're all well aware, and busy families in Falkirk do benefit from having a variety of options available to them. If we push higher charges too high, we risk losing providers altogether and ends up with reduced income. A transitional charge of £120 strikes the right balance. It sees council revenues increase whilst keeping lessons going, supporting families, ensuring our pools remain busy and sustainable. This is a sensible, community-focused solution, and I urge my colleagues to support it.
Okay, thank you. I will now open it up for debate for any other member. Councillor Spears.
I always thought Falkirk Council was trying to help local private businesses to establish and to operate within our district. This clearly looks to me like a cynical move to price them out of the market. One shoe does not fit all. And I'm a great believer in personal choice. You're trying to eliminate personal choice and you're trying to put people out of business at these huge increases. I am more than aware of budget restraints. I'm also aware of how private businesses sustain our area as well. We've seen it at Ineos. Just takes one of them to go. What happens? We should not be seen to not be supporting private business. I will be more than happy to vote with the amendment.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Bowes?
Thank you, convener. Can I first of all say thank you to the officers for what they've done, but I was particularly impressed with the swimming development team and how they've reacted when there has been any gaps and how they've managed to fill them. I think you also confirmed that you have the capacity to expand further and could take up any slack was there at all. Now that's not me saying that that's what I want to happen, because if the private companies can make profit on it, then fine, and if that suits people. However, it's been interesting to hear today the difference in price and time. I think it was £6 for a 40-minute lesson going through the swimming development team, and it's £13 plus for a 30-minute lesson going through the private. Now that might suit people, it might suit them in their times. I think it's been said already that somebody's benefited from that, and that's good. I'm pleased at that. But you've also got to think of the people that can't afford the more expensive side. We have got a number of people who don't have significant amount of money, and therefore, sorry, convener,
Councillor Spears, please don't interrupt others when they're speaking.
Thank you, convener. So we have a number of people who can't afford the obviously higher lesson, and at the moment we're dealing with 3,058 people and getting obviously good lessons from that. You know, I feel as if I'm in Groundhog Day. Yesterday in planning, I argued to vote against a situation where we would have to use tens of thousands of pounds of council capital and revenue budget to support the profits of a private development. To his credit, so did Councillor Redmond. I intend to remain consistent and ask the question I asked yesterday. Where will this lost revenue on the agreed pricing plan from January 2024 be found? What will we have to cut to allow this to happen?
Thank you, Councillor Bowes. Any other member wish to contribute? Councillor Sinclair.
Yeah, I'm looking back at the decision that we took last year, which is publicly available on the committee information website. We went through an extensive period of back and forward on whether or not we could do something different to maintain and sustain the viability and sustainability of our school pools. Thankfully, everybody in this chamber and everybody back then agreed that we needed to do something other than close our pools. Because I think everybody's on the same page that swimming is a life skill and swimming does save lives and so on and so forth. What we were also all clear on is the pricing structure. That information was available to each of us last year. That pricing structure is in that report. That is what we all agreed to. And in the realms of being consistent in our decision making, I don't, again, in similar circumstances, I can't see any circumstances where I would support putting the burden of cost of this on council taxpayers or other service users. That's where I stand on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. No other member? I'm just going to very briefly make comment before I go to Councillor Gardner to sum up. We all agreed a financial strategy, and there's been much talk about that financial strategy and the agreement about reaching sustainability for the council in order to be able to have the funding to invest. I think it is very difficult to make some of these decisions where we're going to have to identify savings or cuts elsewhere in order to fill this gap, where we're already agreed an operating model over the 2 years going forward. So I think we need to be very careful about cherry picking, and we have to be consistent in our decision making. So therefore that's why I personally couldn't support the amendment. But I'll go to Councillor Garner to sum up, and then we'll go to the vote.
Thank you, Convener. This amendment is focused on one part of a very positive report, which is real positive outcomes following on from it. So let's put this into perspective. As we have heard from officers, Labour's amendment, if accepted, will cost in the region of £70,000 per year. We also heard they would need to consider asking our Learn to Swim programme members, over 3,000 users, who would be asked to pay more, increasing the costs for the public to use our much loved and valued swimming pools, and inevitably put the closure of swimming pools back on the table. We have pools at every secondary school, and I want to keep it that way if possible. This, which I believe is no more than a badly judged political stunt, especially given the fact this pricing structure proposed in the report back in January 2024 was actually full council and theirs, and not sticking to it, but going against the financial strategy which has brought about these outcomes. None of us want to increase fees and charges, but the financial position we are in means we need to do this to save our services. In my opinion, this amendment supports a private business to the detriment of the communities. Also, as we have heard from officers, this is bringing the fees in line with the national average, something I totally agree with, and indeed another private provider, where this has already been implemented, has only seen a minor reduction and making it work. Let me be clear, this is not against private providers. There is a place for them here in our pools, but we need to be realistic given the financial pressures we face. There was no one more happier when we averted the closure of any of our school pools by agreeing an achievable pricing structure and clearly prioritising council-run programmes, Learn to Swim, accredited local clubs and Falkirk residents. I love my swimming, and I love seeing kids swim, compete and learn to swim. It is indeed a life skill, but we do have to do what's right for the majority of our pool users, and that is back this very positive report. Hopefully this is not overshadowed by this poor attempt by Labour, which will jeopardise all of this exceptional work. Hopefully members see sense and vote with the motion and officers' recommendations. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you, Councillor Garner. We'll go to the vote. Mr Moody.
Thank you, Convener. And the motion consists of the recommendation at paragraph 2 of the report, moved by Councillor Garner and seconded by Councillor Sinclair, against which there is an amendment which has been circulated, moved by Councillor Redmond and seconded by Councillor Patterson. Councillor Meikle-John.
For the motion.
Councillor Bowes.
Motion.
Councillor Devine.
Motion.
Councillor Flynn.
Motion.
Councillor Forrest.
Motion.
Councillor Garner.
The motion.
Councillor Hannah.
Amendment.
Bailey Kerr.
For the motion.
Councillor Murtagh.
Abstain.
Councillor Nimmo.
Amendment.
Councillor Patterson.
Amendment.
Councillor Redmond.
Amendment.
Councillor Sinclair.
The motion.
And Councillor Spears.
Amendment.
There are 8 votes for the motion. There are 5 votes for the amendment. There was 1 abstention. The motion is carried.
Okay, thank you for that. That brings us to the conclusion of that item. We go back into our agenda as printed with item 7, which is Falkirk's Gaelic Language Plan, and just give an opportunity for Ms Mann to come forward. Welcome. We now open it up to members' questions. Any questions in relation to the paper? Councillor Murtagh.
Fabulous. I do have some questions relating to the paper. I suppose in going through it, and I know that in the paper it says that Chief Executive has the ultimate responsibility for the plan, and we currently have our first plan, and I just want to ask how he thinks we have done on the current plan.
Thank you, convener. I think we've made some progress. I think it's been a bit mixed. Excuse me. I think that quite appropriately, we're taking, I think, a relatively cautious approach, bearing in mind both funding issues and the potential costs of some of the actions. But I think we have made progress. And in terms of the relationship with Borden and Gaelic, there's been some open discussions with them, which I think have been helpful. And I think that what we have in front of us today represents further progress. But it's not an attempt on our behalf to radically shift the position. It's about steady progress over a period of time. I think in terms of our previous report, we've demonstrated some of that. And I think that the ambitions set out in the current report represent a reasonable way forward from that.
Thank you. I suppose, I mean, I could pick out, I could go to the current plan, I could pick out lots of things and basically ask, an Helshin answer plan at Anish, is it not already in the current plan? And I think that's, if I look at some of the things on, for example, signage and whether it's, and it is obviously everything's within resources, etc., that currently exist. But we've got a new building at the Foundry. We've got the branding behind you. We've done lots of different things over the lifetime of the plan, but we don't appear to have followed the plan that we already had. And I know Miss Templeman loves it when I say, "What's the point in having a plan if we don't follow it?" But I do. What comfort or what confidence can you give that we will follow this plan? Where in a lot of cases, if I was to go through them one by one, we haven't followed the last plan.
I mean, I know that John wants to come in, but I'll just say initially, I think we are in a stronger position than we were. I think there's a more robust approach in place. I think that at the management level, we're having more serious, more open discussions about where we go on this. And I mean, there are minor examples, it might seem, but some of the work, for example, on branding, etc., does provide a basis for taking forward some of these actions, which I think you rightly identify have not advanced significantly in the previous period. So that's my view. I'll pass over to John if he wants to add to that.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Councillor Murtagh, I'm responding here, obviously, as Director of Education, who coordinated the construction of the plan and the consultation, recognising that it is a council plan and that all directorates and all services have their part to play in it. And obviously I wasn't around at the time the last plan was put together, but have been involved with discussions with colleagues within the corporate management team and the senior leadership group. And one thing I think that is different from this plan is the formation of a cross-council governance group, if you like, to make sure that where it's possible the actions are being taken and that what we have committed to is going to be delivered. Now that is different from last time. So we now have representatives who will meet with our education support officer, Gail Martin, who is sitting beside me, who is primarily responsible for that, to talk about actions in the plan as set.
Thank you, that's helpful. I suppose if there's what I'm really asking and why I'm bringing these points up is that if we just agree the same plan that we did the last time, or, obviously there's things that have changed, but there's no mechanism and there's no impetus. So what you're saying is that you feel that oversight group or that oversight and cross-council approach will mean that the things that we've agreed in our plan are given regular scrutiny then? Is that what you're saying? That board will provide scrutiny and direct input into all the services and will question the things which are in the plan? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I think that, I think obviously the Gaelic plan, in particular, the part of it that relates to Gaelic medium education, we've had lots of discussions about that over the past few months, but that's why Gail, when she's been constructing the plan with colleagues, has been listening carefully to the feedback from colleagues across the different services, and that's why the commitment is there to have that group. All of the actions that are in the plan have somebody that is responsible for them, and it is subject to resources because there's no additional funding for this, and it's those people and that group that will have oversight of the plan over the next 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. I may have had an amendment, but things the last few days have not been easy. But what I wanted to ask really is that there's a number of classes mentioned within the plan or external organisations, not a declaration of interest, but I know that myself and others in the committee have been part of and class who do a very fantastic job, and there's other groups that are mentioned. How will we actively help them to promote? I know there's some detail within the plan, but how will we engage with them? What is our working relationship with them to sort of, are they the ones that are assessing what the needs of the community are and coming to us, or is there a kind of wider assessment and us going to them and saying, could you do this sort of class, or how could you support that? How does that relationship work?
Thanks, Councillor Murtagh. So I've been the main contact for a lot of these groups and we support them. So for example, we've got Fèis Ors, which is the Fèis that covers Forth Valley area. Falkirk support their annual Fèis not only by providing a venue, but I will give advice and support to the group as well and in regular contact. And Class Gaelic I keep in contact with as well. And then we obviously have organisations such as Falkirk Gaelic Choir, that we will have discussions with to look at what developments could take place. We have to bear in mind if those developments could be a financial cost, and that's not something that we have necessarily access to, but I could advise them on funding that they could apply to out with the council and would absolutely support them on that. We will also promote the activities that they do, and part of the wider discussion, for example, within class, which tends to be a provision there for adults, is how we could work with the likes of teams such as CLD to make sure that that is an offer that's widely available for the community. And with the Fèis, for example, when that takes place, we do promote that quite widely in our schools. We sometimes will offer subsidised places to the Fèis or free places for those that are living within poverty, and make sure that Falkirk is quite represented within those programmes and taking part in maybe sometimes wider activities through our instrumental music programme, such as our concerts and our trad programme that runs through YMI as well, that those children are given that opportunity. So there is ongoing dialogue, but part of the new plan will be that will continue but be taken forward by other services where those community groups sit within and not just within education.
Thank you. I keep wanting to call them Class Camlin because that's where they started, but of course they're now international and have a great following of people going to the classes. You mentioned within that the Gaelic choir, and I just want to ask a very direct question, which I probably will follow up on at a later point. But I believe the Gaelic choir is celebrating its 65th anniversary next year, and I know we do a lot with our pipe band and our other cultural offerings. Could this plan be something which we will, Claire's mentioned was in the plan, do we do something to celebrate their fantastic contribution to our community of Falkirk generally, not just our Gaelic community?
Yes, absolutely. We've had them participating in our annual music concerts, and we will be looking at that because actually next year in 2026 is the 20th anniversary as well of our trad project, and also 30 years of Falkirk Instrumental Music Service. So that will be part of the plan, and we would absolutely include Falkirk Gaelic Choir within those celebration events as well.
Thank you. I look forward to it. Happily.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for officers? No, and that which case I'll go to Councillor Sinclair to move the report.
Thanks, convener. Yep, Falkirk's Gaelic Language Plan. Nobody here will be surprised to know that I absolutely, fully, fundamentally support this plan and every plan that we will produce from now on. The importance of preserving and promoting our cultural heritage with Gaelic, and whether that be Gaelic or other heritage that we have, is it cannot be stressed enough. The plan that we have in place now, every plan thereafter has to enhance on the previous plan, and I think that this absolutely does that. What I will say is that this is a statutory requirement for us, but actually there's in my opinion, a further requirement for us to all just get behind it. And by that I mean it's this report, and it's me as education portfolio and our education service that compels the report. It is the responsibility of everybody here, but also the responsibility of all of our services to tie in with the plan and make sure that we are doing whatever we can with the resources we have to ensure that we are promoting, enhancing and preserving Gaelic right across the area. And I mean, and I'm not going to insult the Gaelic community by trying to pronounce something I can't pronounce, but we see Gaelic in our everyday lives in Falkirk. We drive through areas of towns whose names are immersed in Gaelic. I'd love for you to come along to a class or an evening that tells you about the Gaelic heritage of even the name Falkirk. But the fact of the matter is that the statistics speak for themselves. We've gone from having hundreds of people who access Gaelic to thousands of people who access Gaelic based on the census statistics. So this I wholeheartedly approve, and I wholeheartedly am behind, and I hope that everybody else is too. And yeah, perhaps next year when it does come to the anniversaries that we hold dear, like the Falkirk Gaelic Choir and the Instrumental Music Service and so on, that we can all get behind that too. But thanks to the officers, particularly to Gail Martin, for her work and for everybody's work in bringing this together, and I move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. Councillor Bowes.
Thank you, convener. I'm pleased to see the increase in interest in Gaelic understanding and use in the Falkirk area from approximately 450 to 2,450 people between 2011 and 2022. The plan has been explained, has been developed using consultation in May and June of this year, and a governance group has been formed to enhance and monitor performance. Therefore, I am content to second the Falkirk Gaelic Language Plan, which is in line with national guidance and I believe reflects a deliverable approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowes. As there is no amendment, then just a brief acknowledgement from other group leaders in relation to acceptance.
Thank you to officers for all the work they've done. No amendments.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Bailey Kerr.
No comment.
Thank you, Bailey Kerr. Councillor Spears.
Very pleased to see that this niche opportunity is given to kids and their parents that require it at no additional cost. Thank you.
Councillor Murtagh.
Yeah, I want to thank officers, particularly Gail, for the work that they do. I know how passionate they are about it. I think, as I said before, it is really important that we do follow up, and I'm glad that there will be extra scrutiny in this particular iteration of the plan. As I agree with the Chief Executive that we have made some progress, but we did not make progress as what we had hoped with the plan, and we need to do better. And finally, I can see what's in the consultation responses, and I know that Gaelic isn't everyone's priority, and that is fine. It is not my priority either. But just because it is not the top priority doesn't mean that we shouldn't do things at all. And these things are clearly marked from within existing budgets, and it is an important part of our language and our heritage, and we should be supporting it, as Councillor Sinclair says. So I think it's important that we resist the temptation to do the Gaelic bashing that is so often there. And since Councillor Meiklejohn probably won't tell me off for it, I'll just
I
say,
am indeed. I'm going to cut you short, Councillor Murtagh, and ask you to finish there, please, because it's not statements, it was acknowledgements, and I'm going to move on. I just want to correct something so that nobody's left under a misapprehension. This is not purely around children and education. This is a much broader plan that covers our whole communities. And is not just entirely focused in that. It's intended to be spread out and to cascade out into our communities, so it is part of our heritage. So I just wanted to make that clear to everybody, and thank you very much for that. Okay, we will move on now to item 8, which is a review of the taxi fare scales and other charges. It should be relatively straightforward, but I will ask if there's any questions to officers in relation to this. Councillor Redmond.
Just quickly, some of the taxi drivers in Bonnybridge had raised concerns that they would have liked to have seen it a bit higher, but could we just confirm how the different taxi drivers are allowed to input into the process, and in future how they might get their voices heard?
Okay, I'll just go to Mr. Moody for that.
First of all, there is a standing taxi forum which allows for consultation with drivers and operators and other stakeholders too. But there's also an opportunity in the general consultation when the matter is put out for public consultation for drivers to respond. All of the responses which are received to that consultation are contained within an appendix to your report, and you can see there was a range of views across drivers and operators, and many of the responses from that source were supportive of the proposal to maintain the fare scale as it is. I think just recognising that it was important to maintain business demand as well, and not to try and put that off or suppress that by raising the fares.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, I'll go to Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Camilla. I'll just keep this short and sweet. And just to kind of come back on Councillor Redmond's point, I would urge other taxi operators to get involved, to get in touch. There is a public consultation, and this is now the second public consultation we've done this year around taxis. So the drivers are aware that this is an annual review that happens. So I would just urge them to get in touch and check the website for when it goes. But it's also public knowledge as well, and they can always email me as the convener of the taxi forum at any time. I'll just take the report as read and just move it. Thanks, Camilla.
Thank you. I'll formally second. Is there anybody that requires to make a comment?
No comment.
No comment.
I've always seen our taxi services are both emergency service. If you're in dire need to get to a hospital, and
I did say no political statements.
statement.
Councillor Spears, there is no amendment, so I'm going to just stop you there. You're in agreement with the report.
No, you need
and
to
we're
state
going on.
it was a political statement.
I'm
You cannot
sorry.
control what other people say.
In this case, it's a reason to why you're supporting this, and I'm not taking statements.
I'm telling you why I'm supporting it. I feel it's our fourth
Councillor
emergency
Spears,
service.
Councillor Spears, I'm moving on. Moving on to the next item, which is the revenue financial projection, which is item 10. And again, I'll open that up for questions to officers. No, if there are no questions to officers, obviously people are getting hungry by the feels of it. I will look to move the paper. I think this is the first financial outturn that we have of the financial year. It's a very early stage in the process. We have the services who are operating very good controls, as we've seen, resulting in the underspends, and education are working hard to manage their pressures. But as previously indicated, school repairs are essential, they have to be undertaken. Indeed, we still have the ongoing issue around Madison, which we are still trying to bottom out the potential costs around that. We did at the budget talk about how a report coming back in relation to our reserve strategy, and that will be part of the financial strategy that will come in October. Currently our reserves are sitting as pretty healthy. The budget report in March flagged the Integrated Joint Board and the need for additional non-recurring funding for them, and this has a contingency within our budget planning, and there's some reassurance over the position, but they are working hard to improve their financial position in order not to increase any burden on the council. We do have the updated 5-year projections that will come as part of the financial strategy in October, which isn't that terribly far away, and that will give members a much better oversight of all the savings and the progression of them. A number of continues to be a number of pressure points around pay. Not all of those have been resolved, and there may well be other unintended consequences that come that could impact on services over the year. So while it's a positive position at the moment, that could indeed change, but we hope that things will continue, and I'm happy to move the report. Councillor Rice.
Yeah, thank you. As the name suggests, it's a projection report, and a reasonably positive one at that. However, with every projection, there has to be caveats. And the main one in this one is it's very, very early in the financial cycle, and things can and most likely will change before the financial year end in 2026. So I agree with the number of caution, the bit of caution that the leader of the council has put in her summation, and I'm happy to second her.
Thank you for that. Group leaders, Councillor Hannah.
So I just wanted to, I wasn't quite sure what happened to questions. I think we have.
Nobody indicated they had questions.
Sorry, I missed that. I missed the question about questions. My apologies.
I did ask.
It was merely a minor issue. I don't have any amendments, but I wondered if it may be Mr. Moody or it may be Mr. Templeman would like to just say a little bit about, because there's reference in here to additional funds that may be requested by the IJB. And I wondered if we could have just a clarification about how the IJB funding comes into that situation.
Okay, I will allow it on this occasion, but it won't happen in the future.
My apologies.
I did ask for questions, and there was a delay and nobody responded. But very briefly, if you could, Mrs. Templeman.
Yes, thank you. So, as members know, the Integration Joint Board is jointly funded by Falkirk Council and NHS Forth Valley. In our budget report, we flagged that there's quite a sort of direction from the Scottish Government about the level of funding that we provide. It can't be any lower than the previous year, and we have to pass through certain funding that comes that's directly for the Health and Social Care Partnership. So in the 25-26 budget, Falkirk Council complied with those rules, but we did recognise that the IJB business case was setting out quite significant pressure across both health and social care, and would likely need some additional non-recurring funding. Now, at the point of our budget, the Health and Social Care Partnership still hadn't finally set their budget because they do that towards the end of March. So we had flagged that in the budget that we probably would have to provide funding. However, their business case does show that they have a plan to break even over a 3-year period. And so on that basis, we had said the funding that we would provide would be non-recurring, so it wouldn't form part of that base budget that we then have to pay each year. So we provide the funding, and it's for the IJB to then make the decisions over what they do with that funding, where they potentially need to make any reductions. And obviously that's all approved at the Integration Joint Board meetings. No.
Thank you and apologies again.
Councillor Kerr?
Nothing to say, nothing to add. The reports, the next 3 reports are all for noting. We will get updates in the months to come. So
Thank you.
thanks for the papers.
Councillor Spears?
Sorry to see our reserves have not increased, because maybe if we don't break even next year, we might rely on them more heavily.
Okay, and I think that Councillor Murtagh's left. Okay, thank you for that. We will move on now to the capital. And again, I will say again, any questions for officers in relation to the capital report?
Heard and have none.
Okay, thank you. No, there's no indications. I'm happy to move the report. Very similar to the last occasion, it's early days in the financial year. However, the report has indicated that there's been work happening over the summer to reprofile the capital programme, and we will get that brought forward again as part of the financial strategy. It highlights that some of the big projects that the council are in the process of developing or on site as part of the TIF, the leap or the sports wings, as we've heard progress on those, and those will be given more detail as they progress. Capital strategy and the financial strategy are clearly linked. We know that on many occasions, so it will be subject to potential change as the treasury management is carried out in relation to that. But we are in a good position, and we've continued to review our capital programme and ensure that we're delivering on that capital programme going forward, which gives us best use of the funding. And as ever, we are dictated by interest rates. So I'm happy to move the report. Councillor House.
Can't add to that. All I'm to say, I formally second.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hannah.
No further comment.
Councillor Kerr.
No comment.
Councillor Spears.
Sometimes I'm afraid to make a comment. It's interesting.
Well, sometimes you're not required to make a comment either.
I think the public expect more of us, but climate change implications, very interesting. Are we getting rid of all the buildings that we can't improve to net zero?
Councillor Spears, that is not part of what you're intended to do at this point, and I will continue to remind you of that if you keep doing that. Move on to the final in the suite of those, which is our Treasury Management Annual Review. And if there are any questions for Mrs. Templeman on this one? No. It's not our favourite one, Amanda. I am happy to move the report. It's a backwards look, it's a reflection, because we've had the capital reflection and the revenue reflection outturns already. The inflation figures are ever a concern. If inflation rises, the Bank of England will increase the interest rates, and that costs them borrowing. So we continue to keep an eye out very closely on that. The higher interest rates can mean that the economic activity takes a downturn, and that slows everything down. It's not really what we want to see. It is very difficult to predict. We've got a very, very volatile environment, which I think we all know, even from our own pockets. So in terms of, there's a backward look, there's just we've complied with everything we've required to over the last year, and our treasury management regime continues to inform the council's spend and management of the funding. I'm therefore happy to move the annual review. Councillor Bowes.
It's a very important report, because what this contains actually feeds the other two reports, because your treasury management, as the leader has said, is your interest rate and your inflation rate, which has just gone up to 3.8%. But that's what this matters. matters because it feeds to the other two. But I'm happy to second the leader of the council.
Okay, thank you. Again, any comment from group leaders? It's not imperative.
Just thank you to Amanda and the officers for managing to put some complicated and difficult information into very clear reports.
On behalf of Bailey Care, no comment.
No
Thank
comment.
you.
Councillor Spears. Councillor Spears.
I'm savouring the moment. Just to thank our officers, very competent.
Okay, thank you for that. Moving into the final items, item 13 is the Old Borough Buildings, the statutory consultation for the disposal of the common good property. We have Paul Kettrick with us, who is able to answer any questions. I'll ask now, is there any questions to officers? Councillor Spears.
Paul, could you tell us, like the Bowhouse Community Centre, will this be knocked down if it's not sold or taken over?
Convener, the short answer is no. It is a C-listed building of heritage quality within the centre of the town, and there is clearly highlighted in the report protections in there to safeguard from that happening.
Thank you for that. Any further questions? Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, thank you. My only question really is that when buyers come forward, will there be any screening is the word I use, but will you be selective on who may purchase the property to watch out that there's anything that might adversely affect the nature or environment of the town centre? I won't mention any aspect, but I've got something in mind. Well, that makes sense.
Mr. Petty.
Through yourself. As we've done previously on heritage properties where they've been disposed, not only do we have the protections by the C listing, but we also incorporate conditions on the disposal which relates to preservation of the historic features of the property, and they are title burdens that run with the property. We also, as part of our diligence processes, as part of any disposal, undertake the necessary checks for things such as money laundering and aspects like that, so we can be assured that prospective purchasers that come forward have the experience and are putting forward proposals that are compatible with our intentions for the building going forward.
Thank you. Just on that, Paul, I'm very aware that we've already had a number of properties that's been in this position. And I think we've sought to put some additional conditions on those. Is that something that's available?
Yes, that is the intention. As we did similarly recently with Denny Townhouse, there was conditions added to the disposal.
Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, convener. During our briefing on this, Mr. Kettrick made some reference to a potential community asset transfer interest. Has there been any progress on that?
For yourself, Katina, there has been nothing more than an initial contact to the council. The next stage of the process, should members be minded to agree the report today, is to commence the marketing of the property, and any asset transfer would be considered along that process if it was forthcoming, and would be reported back to elected members in the usual way for the consideration of asset transfers and any offers that come forward.
Thank you.
Okay. No other questions. I think Councillor Sinclair, you're going to pick up this report.
Yes, convener. Colleagues will be aware that Councillor Garner is no longer in the meeting. However, he has provided me his remarks, and whilst I'm not an impressionist, I will attempt to encapsulate his dulcet tones. The purpose of this report is to provide information on the outcome of the consultation on the proposed sale of Falkirk Old Borough Buildings under the Community Empowerment Act 2015. Property was declared surplus back in 2020 as part of the office modernisation programme and was confirmed for closure as part of the strategic property review. The building is now closed and all services have been relocated, most notably with the registration services being located at the Falkirk Library and ceremonial events such as citizenship ceremonies and weddings being held at Calendar House. The latter has been proven to be an improvement on the previous weddings held at the property. As a property is held on the Falkirk Common Good, a statutory consultation has been undertaken in advance of a decision taken to dispose of the property to seek the community's views. As part of these proposals for its reuse were also sought. From the 60 responses received, 43.3% agreed with the proposal, with the same numbers, 43.3% and 8% not expressing a preference. Of those against the proposal, a key concern from 5 responses was the perceived loss of historic buildings to the Falkirk Town Centre. As Mr Kettrick has already alluded to, the building is C-listed, which secures statutory protection, and as the Council has done with other prominent buildings such as Denny Townhouse, conditions will be attached if the property is disposed. Another concern was that it was perceived by 3 respondents that there would be a reduction in the quality of services if moved to another location. Services have already relocated and initial feedback, particularly in relation to the use of Calendar House, has been positive, and the integration of registrar services at the hub at Falkirk Library is considered to be delivering an improvement, with front-facing services being co-located. Given the protections and successful relocation of services already occurring, the concerns raised are mitigated against. Those in favour who made a comment generally reflected the positive aspects of the intended sale outlined in the report. The recommendation is therefore to seek approval to advertise the property for sale. This disposal will secure a saving of approximately £59,700 per year and will generate a capital receipt for the Falkirk Common Good Fund. Any future sale will be subject to consideration by executive. No community group has put forward an application to acquire the site under the Community Asset Transfer legislation, and if these do materialise, will be considered in accordance with statutory requirements and by officers who, we are all aware, are well versed in dealing with asset transfers. In conclusion, the building is not required operationally, and we have seen service improvements through the co-location of previous services based in the building to other venues. This is compatible with the Council to have less but better utilised properties. A saving of nearly £60,000 per year will be delivered, a capital receipt generated for the Common Good Fund, and any future use will require to be compatible with its C-listing status and any imposed sale conditions. With that, I am content to move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair, and I'll formally second. I'll just go to group leaders briefly.
No further comment.
In the absence of Councillor
No further comment.
Councillor Spears.
I personally feel it's a sad day. Part of our heritage that we've all been elected to.
Are you proposing an amendment, Councillor Spears?
Not an amendment.
In which case, you're in accordance
No,
with
you
the
asked me
report.
for a comment. I'm giving you a comment.
The comment in support of the report.
It's okay if you don't want any.
Okay, we are all agreed on that item. The final item before the motion is the sale of land at Broad Street in Denny. Again, I will take questions to officers, and Mr Kettrick's here to assist if there's any questions in relation to this item. No questions? No. Okay, Councillor Sinclair, take it you've got the notes for this one as well?
I do. This has got to be abbreviated, and must chat with Councillor Garner on the length of his remarks. And if I didn't encapsulate his dulcet tones in the last one, I will try again this time. The purpose of this report is to declare surplus and seek approval for the disposal of a strip of land extending to 0.145 hectares at Broad Street, Denny, to Cruden Homes East for £175,000. Members of the executive will recollect the previous report in September 2024, where the disposal of approximately 5 acres of land who's the land to Mr Mackay, who's the other landowner and is working in partnership with Cruden Homes, Cruden Homes. Following agreement on this sale, Cruden Homes approached the council to secure additional land to support access to the wider site. The site is part of a mixed-use allocation under LDP 2, MU09, and forms part of the Denny South East Strategic Growth Area. It is not required for operational purposes. Following negotiations and valuations by the district valuer, an additional capital receipt has been secured. The district valuer has confirmed that the proposed disposal price of £175,000 represents best value. The proposed land transaction is subject to Crudence Homes East Limited obtaining all necessary statutory consents, including planning permission and simultaneous conclusion of land acquisitions with Mr Mackay. In conclusion, the proposed sale of this additional small area of land represents a positive outcome for the council, delivering a further capital receipt of £175,000. Beyond the direct financial benefit, the proposed development will unlock wider community gains through Section 75 contributions and DEAR contributions, along with the delivery of much needed affordable housing. And I move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. I'll formally second. We'll get into group leaders.
No further comment.
No further comment.
Councillor Spears.
Afraid to make a comment.
Okay, take that as agreed. We come to a final item, which is the motion referred to the Executive under Standing Order 29 around houses of multiple occupation. There is no amendment on this motion, therefore it will be moved and seconded, and then there will be no debate following that, as there's no disagreement. But I will go to, is it Councillor Nimmo to move the motion?
Thanks, Convener. It's a pleasure to move this motion. The motion came about because of numerous complaints.
Apologies, Councillor Nimmo. Before you get into that, I should have asked if there were any questions to officers first. Apologies, if you could just hold that thought for a minute. Councillor Spears, you got questions?
Can I ask the officers, there's been a ruling regarding hotels on the English courts. Does that affect us here in Scotland?
I'll let Mr Moody take that, because it's not really something that's pertinent to the motion, to be honest.
I think it's fair to say, Convener, that it's not strictly relevant to the agenda item before us, but it's fair to say the officers are aware of the decision, we're studying its implications and the relevance or not to the situation.
Okay. Any other questions, officers? No. Okay, you may start again, Councillor Nimmo. Apologies for that.
At the risk of repeating myself, Convener, I've got great pleasure in moving this motion. The motion came about because of a significant number of complaints from Grangemouth residents in particular. Now, personally, I don't think there are enough controls. It will be interesting to see what officers bring forward in the near future. I don't think licensing and planning are the only controls that are needed. What we really need is some form of over-provision policy that we can take forward for the future. At the end of the day, it's about perception, and ultimately the public out there will let us know what they think if officers come back with something that they don't deem as suitable. But like I said, Convener, I'm happy to move the motion and leave it at that for the time being.
Thank you. Seconder?
I will very briefly second the motion. I thank Councillor Nimmo for bringing this forward and welcome the opportunity for officers to bring forward a report putting the facts on the table for us. I want to thank officers for the briefings they've provided, which have been very informative. And I think it is important that the public are aware of what the rules are and are reassured that Falkirk Council officers are following those rules appropriately.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. In relation to the SNP group, we're happy to support the report coming back. Hence the reason there's no amendment at this time. Again, to have a balanced picture of across the council area. Councillor Flynn, on behalf of Councillor Kerr.
Yeah, happy to agree with what you've said. Thank you.
Councillor Spears.
Very happy to see a report coming back, and I hope it contains the maximum capacity figures that were asked for at the briefing.
Okay, thank you. In which case, we're all agreed that brings this morning's executive to a conclusion. Thank you all for your attendance and your contributions.
Thanks to the Chair.
Thank you.